Perfect. I want to make sure that this is recording. Okay, welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. My name is Dominic Greene. Thank you for joining us for this program. Lifelong Brotherhood Engagement with Delta Upsilon Beyond Graduation. It's an important program. As someone who's been a member of the fraternity for over 24 years, it's important to stay engaged, involved, and thinking about ways that you can, what you're really passionate about and how can you stay involved beyond graduation. For a lot of you that are recently graduating or about to graduate, this is a great opportunity to start thinking about ways and what this looks like for you. So we have a couple panelists joining us today, but we'll get rolling right into that. First, like I said, let me start with, so my name is Dominic Greene. I'm the Director of Health and Safety Initiatives for Delta Upsilon Fraternity. I've been back with the DU staff now for about a year and a half, and I will be the main facilitator for this program today. So I will let Hayden introduce himself.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Hayden Rahn. I am currently serve the International Fraternity as the Expansion Development Director. Been on staff for just under 4 years, so June 6th will actually be my 4-year anniversary. Spent my first year on staff as a leadership consultant, and then the past 3 years in my current position. On top of being a staff member, I also serve as the main chapter advisor for the Oregon chapter, in which I graduated there in 2016.
Jeff?
Hey, my name's Jeff Kreutz. I'm a 1999 graduate from the Missouri chapter. I have served for the last 7 years on our Housing Corporation board as an alumni, as our alumni board member. And then I've spent the last 2 years working as the chair of our advisory board. So working very directly, I've been directly working as a member of Housing Corp, but we formed a second board and have now the advisory board. And I've worked very, very closely with our members on that for the last few years and really enjoyed that, as well as facilitated and gone to quite a few other programs like RLA and LI over the last 7 years.
Perfect. And Ryan?
Yeah, welcome everyone. My name is Ryan King. I'm the Executive Director for Delta Upsilon, and I work basically as the head staff member driving the work of the DU Educational Foundation. I'm just about to come up on a year and a half on the DU team, and it's been a great journey for me thus far. Prior to DU, I spent my prior 18 years working for a different fraternal organization, and basically since 2009, I've been in development work doing fundraising for Fraternity Foundation. So very, very excited to not only be on the DU team, but happy to engage in conversation with you all tonight.
Perfect. All right, we're going to get rolling. So here's an overview of what we're going to cover tonight. A lot of, like I said, the program is geared towards people who are in the process of graduating, recent grads. We also know we have advisors on the call as well. We are going to have opportunities for questions and or other ways or other opportunities we might not have covered. So I know we have some advisors on the call right now. So when we're ready to take questions or comments, I'll give the instructions on what that looks like. So what we're going to do is explore the kind of why, the what, the where, and the how. So what does this look like to get involved? I remember when I was a recent grad, I was luckily enough, I ended up taking a pathway of actually going to work for the fraternity. But I know a lot of my peers in my chapter ended up asking me, like, where do I get started? Can I be an advisor? Some of my friends from my chapter, we're moving to different parts of the US and trying to figure out, how do I get involved? What does that look like? As you know, some people were very much engaged. They really just want to do the social things. Some people really wanted to be volunteer. Other people wanted, a little bit of light touch here and there. And other people really just wanted to network and meet other DUs, right? So there's a lot of other opportunities that we're going to explore all those areas as I just covered. So here's just some main areas that we're going to cover. Is looking at what does it look like to volunteer, to serve as an advisor or as a House Corporation member, if that's something your chapter has. What does it look like to give back, getting involved with the foundation, as well as what does it look like to give for local opportunities as well. We're going to cover some employment opportunities. We know that some of our graduating seniors are still job searching. And we are, like I said, we're going to talk about what does it look like to work for the fraternity, as well as local and regional connections, networking opportunities, social opportunities. What does that look like to stay engaged with the fraternity, as well as covering how to stay involved with IHQ programs and some other ways to mentor both career-wise and other opportunities. So a lot of these higher level areas that are going to get covered by Jeff, Ryan, and Hayden are, why do you want to stay involved? What does it look like for you? A lot of that concept of paying it forward, that you had such a really good quality undergraduate experience and you're looking to give back. And like I said, I think sometimes people get scared because they automatically think the only way to give back is financially, but there are many different ways that you can give back your time, energy, guidance, mentorship, whatever that looks like. So we're going to cover all these different ways. Is why to stay involved? What can you do to stay involved? How do you get involved? And what does that even look like? Where do you get started? And a lot of those ways from there. We could cover this for a few hours. The program, we plan to just go about 30 minutes or so tonight, depending on questions and answers. So we want to be able to give you a good opportunity to at least explore and learn more about what you can do. Like I said, and some people are ready to might want to jump in immediately. And some people might want to wait a couple years, right? So, when you're ready to connect and do more for the fraternity, kind of beyond graduation. So what we're going to do is I'm going to turn this over to our first of our guest presenters. So first we're going to have Jeff get us started with looking at volunteer opportunities once post-graduation. Jeff. Oh, Jeff, you're muted.
Sorry, I was muted there. Thanks, Dominic. I appreciate that. The first question I want to kind of ask is why get involved and why be a part of this? And I graduated from college, and other than do you want to come work for Delta Upsilon, that was about really all that I knew out there in front of me that was an option. So that wasn't something. I already had a different career lined out, and that wasn't the path I took. So I was largely out of this position for about 15 or so years out of college. Years later, we had a capital campaign, and I was involved in that, and was then asked by another board member, would I like to join the board? But I think what's important is that if you're an advisor listening to this call, I think it's important that you make sure that graduating seniors know that there are opportunities out there, and that there's a lot of different things that they can do, and that they just need to ask. I also think it's probably important from an advisor standpoint to put some of those things out and kind of give a description or go over things like this call and present a few options so guys know what's out there that they otherwise maybe wouldn't know about. From a senior standpoint or someone who's a recent graduate, I think it's important to just go out there and ask. Most of our DU chapters have an alumni group. Some of them have Housing Corp board. Some of them have a Housing Corp board and an advisory board, or just an advisory board. There are DU chapters who have huge alumni contingencies, that are very, very active. And there's other groups that are very small. They have one or two people that are helping out. But I think the important thing is get out there and ask, find out a little bit more about it, inquire before you graduate, or, on that end, and ask what you can be doing if that's something that interests you. We actually, I got involved in this and I started doing it, and I wasn't sure what it was going to look like. I actually was asked, hey, can you do a few things and set up a golf tournament once a year? Can you do some alumni relations things? And I said, yeah, that's fine, because I would enjoy talking to some of my brothers. I've missed talking to some of these guys. And then at one point I was asked to help out and go to an executive board retreat, and I quickly realized that even more than my time with my alumni brothers from my own areas, I really enjoyed working with the guys in the chapter. And so my time in doing this has shifted over the last 7 years, where the first year or two is predominantly all alumni work. Now it's predominantly undergraduate work, and partnering with the undergraduate exec team and talking through a little bit of everything, what the day-to-day problems are, long-term planning and goals for the chapter, and all of these things. And it has been unbelievably rewarding. I realized how many things I missed. I miss hearing the stories and being reminded of the things that we did every single year, and the engagement with the guys, and planning homecoming or whatever it might be, competing in Greek week and just talking about all that, I realized those are all the reasons it's reminded me of why I joined and what I enjoyed about being a member. And I get to relive that. It's a different way to relive it because it's not your chapter anymore. It is truly that undergraduate group's chapter, but just to be involved has been really rewarding, and it's been neat to watch younger members in the house who come in and they're very green as to what this even looks like and what their fraternal experience is going to be. And you see them progress over the next 4 years and take on executive positions or be involved in all these different things in the chapter, and you get to watch them grow. And then all of a sudden they're saying, hey, I'm graduating. Can you write me a letter of recommendation to get into graduate school or whatever it might be? And you look back at these guys after knowing them for 4 years, and what a neat thing to see how they've kind of grown up and how much they've changed over the last few years and all the ways that they developed and how strong of a leader they became or how big of a contributor. So it's been very rewarding from that standpoint. And I love, that's why I'm still continue to do this and be involved. It's been absolutely fantastic. One of the other things I want to kind of talk about is that role, and there are a couple different roles. In a perfect world, I think every chapter would ideally have 2 different boards. You'd like to see every chapter have a housing court board, and you'd like to have everybody have an advisory board. And for those that are listening in on the call that aren't familiar with the 2 and what the difference is, I'll kind of break those down real quick. But the Housing Corporation Board, or Housing Court Board as it's often called, is essentially the board that usually takes care of all the underlying things that allow the fraternity to exist. So they're making sure if you have a house that the mortgage is paid. They're sending out maybe lease paperwork. They're making sure that the chapter has insurance. They're looking into, is the fraternity or that local chapter accredited with their local university? Do they take care of everything with Greek life or fraternity sorority life, whatever the office is on campus? Are they sending out paperwork to parents and a lease to sign every year? Are they paying the bills and taking care of all the bigger picture things? The second board is the advisory board, and the advisory board is more focused on working very directly on programming aspects with the undergraduate chapter. There's usually, in a perfect world, again, 9 people on that advisory board. You typically have 8 undergraduate executive officers. So you have 8 alumni advisors, 1 paired up with each of those 8 undergraduates. And then you have a chair, which is my current position, is the chair of that advisory board. And my job is to kind of help just give some guidance, fill in the blank if there's a transition, or just wherever, jump in and help and keep the agendas going and the meetings going and make sure everybody's doing their part. So there are 2 different approaches. And my experience has been that the advisory board who's working directly with the undergraduates might be a little bit younger. They might be guys that connect a little better with the undergraduates. It's hard to sit down and do goal planning and things when you've maybe been out of touch from it and maybe you don't understand today's generation. But if you're a younger member, I think, and I'm maybe being generous by calling myself young, but if you are a younger member, I think that's an ideal place to get started because you're fresher out of the college environment. You understand what college culture looks like today, and it changes from generation to generation. So that's a nice aspect to have. And it gives you some good perspective. And I think that you tend to connect very well with the undergraduates. The Housing Court Board is typically thinking about long-term financial standpoint, and maybe it's assessing repairs that are needed for the house, or they're analyzing insurance policies, or if there's any legal concerns. And that tends to be that you get more senior experienced alumni that tend to fit that role better because they're bringing maybe a lifelong commitment to their particular industry, whether they're an attorney or someone who deals with real estate or whatever, and they can bring their background and knowledge to that job. Not to say that it's not important to have some younger people on that Housing Court Board, but it tends to align that way in my experience. So those are the two boards and kind of what they do. I had a bullet point here about what does an advisor do, or what does it look like on a more of a day-to-day basis, and some traits or things that are important. And I was talking about this with somebody the other day, and I expressed that, you know, our focus is not to relive our time in the chapter. Our focus is not to just sit back and relive our glory days and tell stories about what we did back when I was in the house. Our focus really is here to give another perspective, to help. A lot of chapters tend to focus on, this is what we always have done, let's just keep doing this. And so I think there's an important aspect to, hey, what about trying it this way? Add a little bit of creativity, and then just help those guys with being able to be a fresh perspective that's not engaged, that's not personally vested in every decision being made. It allows you to sit back, watch the guys take steps, and then kind of put a bug in their ear every now and then and say, hey, have you ever noticed that the chapter keeps falling into this routine? Or have you guys noticed that you're working really hard on this, but it's not going the way that you want to? Why do you think that is? And put some things back on them and let them figure it out, a lot of it out for themselves. And then, you know, help them foster that and grow that. We give them a gentle push on some bigger picture processes like goal setting. Just last week, I facilitated something with our undergraduate exec where they've transitioned from what their goals were last year as how chapter just getting back into a new house, and they're ready now to start thinking about longer term goals. So we facilitated a goal setting and value, where they determined what are our values and what are our goals going forward, and then how do we then break that down into individual executive position tasks. And then you're also that ear for them to talk to when things are rough, or when they're struggling, or when they're, keep running into a wall. What does that look like? And we're struggling with a particular member, or we're having a hard time doing this or doing that. You're just that person for them sometimes to just come to and talk and get it off their chest. And sometimes guys just need to vent. So those are kind of what I see as the roles and the traits of a good advisor. And then the last part I wanted to talk about was just what does it look like to get involved with the chapter, and from that perspective. And one of the things that I've done this last year was we had a couple of guys that were graduating that I spoke to prior to them graduating, and we went out and made sure that we knew, hey, we've got an open spot on the advisory board. If that's something that you think you'd look like. We answered some questions. We kind of talked about what that would look like. What's the commitment level? You got to be maybe on a conference call from time to time. You got to follow up with your undergrad from time to time. But these are the things we're looking to do. And you got to talk them up too. It's some of these guys graduate and go, I don't know if I can do this. I'm graduating. I'm taking a new job. I'm not even sure if I'm experienced enough to do this. But it's saying to them, hey, you did a great job when you were on exec. You performed exceptionally well. The guys really relate. You got to kind of also help them understand that what their strengths are and why they would be a good contributor to it. And the other thing that we put out a newsletter from time to time, or if you've got a website for your chapter, or a Facebook page or some kind of social media, but it's also putting some things out on your social media and on that communication that your chapter has that lets people know that we're always looking for new advisors. We're always looking for someone to pitch in, and let them know that that's out there. If you're struggling to find those people, I would tell you that it's very important that you personally reach out to people. Sometimes just putting something out on a website that says we want people to sign up doesn't always get you a huge response. Sometimes it takes a couple people that you might have in mind and following up with them with a personal phone call to say, hey, I know you've been away from the fraternity for a few years or for 10 years or 20 years, but we could really use your help. We'd love to have you come back. Here's where we think you could fit in. Here's why we would value having you on this, and make the personal ask to see if you can get them involved. That's another important aspect to it. I think that's everything, Dominic, that I had.
Perfect. No, thank you for sharing that, Jeff. Before we move forward to, if anyone on the call has any comments or other things they want to chime in on, if you want to add them to the chat box, and then I will read them off to either the presenters, or if you just want to either I can read off your thought or your comment or your question, or I can take you off. You can take yourself off mute, and if you want to add that to the call as well. So we want to make this as interactive as possible. The last thing I wanted to just share, Jeff, is I think there's also good opportunities for guys to not only get involved with their own chapter, but potentially also with another chapter. If they end up in Columbia for law school, right? So how do they get involved, or they end up in a different city? Is making sure that either that's something that we can do at headquarters, that we can connect you with the local advisory chair and make those connections, or we can connect you with undergraduate chapter. So we just want to obviously allow it for whether you stay locally or you end up moving to a completely different city. What does it look like to be an advisor, be on a house corps, and to continue to give back at that capacity?
Yeah, that's actually been something that Hayden really helped us out with. When we formed our advisory board a couple years ago, we were trying to kind of fill out who are these 9 people that are going to be on this. And Hayden introduced us to a couple people. And so we've actually got 2 advisors that were not Missouri DUs. And it's been fantastic because it's a fresh perspective. It's a fresh take on what they did that was maybe a little bit different than how we did things. And it's been really nice to bring in a completely different perspective and they don't have that. A lot of times people have a narrow-minded path of, well, this is what we've always done. And it allows somebody to come in and question that and just say, well, why do we always do it that way? Have we ever thought about doing it this way? Would it benefit us if we tried something new? And it's brought a lot of fresh perspectives in, and that's been fantastic. But yeah, if you've moved, just reaching out to anyone at DU International and at headquarters and saying, hey, I'm in a new state, a new city, a new region, how can I be involved? I guarantee there's someone that can lead you in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, awesome. Thanks, Jeff. Myself, my bad. Okay, all right, I'm going to move over next to Ryan King. Ryan, we'll get started with your part of the presentation. All right.
Absolutely. Well, I just want to thank Jeff for his service to the fraternity as a volunteer. It's just so critical that we have key volunteers like Jeff, and I'm sure there's some on the call that either are currently volunteers or are excited about doing that, but that's such a critical component that keeps the organization going. So one of the first things that I thought I'd talk about as a representative of the DU Foundation is just, what exactly does the foundation do? And I think covering this first might give people just a good perspective, 30,000-foot view of exactly, what's the purpose of the foundation and why is it so important? So we like to summarize the work of the foundation into a couple key words. The first one is cultivation. As a foundation, we are in the business of building relationships, and when we cultivate, it's all about promoting friendship. And notice the first one that we put on here is not asking people to give, because people don't give unless they have a connection to the organization, and that's why cultivating that promotion of friendship is so important. It's why so many of you joined. It's why so many of you continue to stay involved, and it's likely what will keep our alumni engaged as you become alums as well. So after we cultivate and build that relationship, the second thing the foundation does is yes, we ask people to give back with their time and with their treasure. When we ask someone to give of their treasure, we put those gifts to good use, which is the third one, which is stewardship. And that's our way of basically saying, hey, a donor makes a gift, and then we need to make sure we do our job as a foundation to put those dollars to good use and to make an impact. And last but not least, we recognize our supporters. We say thank you in many ways, and the development cycle that we like to call it of these 4 words is kind of the next slide that just shows the foundation is always in this cyclical cycle of cultivating relationships, asking DUs and friends to give back, making a difference with their gift and showing the donors who make a difference with their gift, and then last but not least saying thank you. So all that being said, that's kind of the 30,000-foot view. I think in a very specific way, if you ask yourself, why does the foundation do all these things? Well, it's no surprise. Our goal as a foundation is to advance the fraternity's mission of building better men. And that mission is not just some fancy tagline to us. Our donors wholeheartedly believe in this organization. They believe in our undergraduates. They believe in those that are going to go on to be young alumni and make a difference for our world. And so that whole concept of building better men is one that is at the basis and the core of why people join the organization and why people give back as well. And so it's our job as a foundation to make sure we're doing our due diligence to invest so that we can build better men every year through the different programs that we offer our students, anywhere from President's Academy to coaching visits that we have with our local chapters or supporting our advisors. But at the end of the day, that building better men concept, again, isn't just a tagline. It's a true passion, both in the work that we do and in the reasons that we raise the funds. So that's just a quick high-level overview of what the foundation does and why it's important. The next thing I want to talk about is just, okay, now that I know specifically how the foundation is building better men, how exactly do I give back, or what are the ways in which I can give back specifically to the foundation? And there's really three kind of buckets that I'll mention. And at the end of the day, we're very blessed as a foundation because we do have to rely on alumni and friends every year to give back and support us. There's really two ways in which the organization gets financial resources. It's through undergraduate dues and it's through alumni contributions to the foundation. And the first big bucket, which is always our biggest need, is our annual loyalty fund. It's our annual fund that basically is the fuel that drives all of the educational programming that brings to life that mission for building better men. It's an unrestricted bucket that we use, and those dollars are raised and spent every year. In fact, this fiscal year comes to a close on June 30th, and we've got a $435,000 goal with about $90,000 still left to raise to get to the finish line. And so those dollars come in, we spend them on programs as they come in, and it's a critical piece of the foundation's work. And it supports all of our chapters, whether it's an upcoming colony or a chapter that's been around for more than 150 years. So the annual fund will always be our biggest need, but it's a critical bucket. Another way to give back would be to some sort of short-term restricted fund. Some chapters have set up like a chapter education account or a chapter housing account or some other restricted fund that is basically set aside with restrictions to specifically go to a purpose that benefits either that chapter or that program. These funds just sit in the bucket, and the foundation kind of manages them and invests them to make sure that they grow over time. And then as local volunteers say, hey, we want to use our chapter education account, for example, to pay for our guys to go to the Leadership Institute. So then we would grant the money as a foundation. And there's easy ways on the DU website to kind of walk through the different giving options, but chapter-specific funds or program-specific funds are in that short-term pool. The other one that you probably may remember as an undergraduate is our GSI fundraising. That's another short-term fund. So money that comes into those when chapters fundraise for GSI goes into the GSI fund, and then they're immediately spent on that program. But short-term funds don't really have any sort of spending restriction, with the exception of making sure it's for the right chapter or the right program. So when the money's gone in that bucket, it's gone until local alums give and others give to build the resources back up. The third way to give back is through some sort of endowment fund. Endowment funds can be anywhere from something restricted to something fully unrestricted, but the big difference in giving to an endowment fund is only 4% of that fund can be used every year. So it's not like the annual loyalty fund or our other short-term restricted funds, because we only can spend as a foundation 4% of the fund every year, with the thought that over time the fund will grow and always make an impact, and will make an impact forever based on that conservative spending policy. So some examples of some endowment funds, some chapters have set up chapter legacy plans. We have a couple other unrestricted endowment funds that help, for example, make dual possible, that was given by one major gift from an alumnus to help bring that program to life. So at the end of the day, there's lots of different ways and fingers kind of in play in helping the foundation fund all the educational access or activities that the fraternity is doing. And you as an alumnus had your choice of how you give and how you make a difference with these options. So that's kind of a 30,000-foot view on the purpose of the foundation and what are the different ways you can get back financially. But at the end of the day, I think it's important to ask yourself, like, what next? If I'm a young alumnus and I've just kind of started my working path, what's my charge, or how do I move forward as an alumnus if I want to have any involvement with the foundation? And so we like to talk about, from the foundation side, just find your spot on the path and keep climbing. So this is just a simple visual that kind of shows the path in which we hope our alumni go through, even starting as an undergraduate and giving to the Oak Circle, which is the first one at the bottom. It's a program for undergraduates to give 1834 to the foundation. So that's a great way to start the journey as a DU to connect to the foundation. After that, we hope after you graduate, you attend different chapter events, whether it's a local events or even sometimes regional alumni events. And sometimes the foundation puts those on, sometimes it's a local chapter that puts it on. But staying connected is so critical for the organization. It isn't just about a paycheck and giving funds back. It's also about living out those values of friendship, culture, justice, all those things that were so important to you as an undergraduate, living those out and sharing those with people and with DU brothers. That happens both at the local level with chapter events, but also sometimes other alumni events. There's a couple other examples on this path that you can think about, establishing a recurring gift. The fourth one there is maybe serving as a volunteer for the foundation and helping out with our Founders Day of Giving as an ambassador. That was a new program we started last year where alumni basically help be champions for the work of the foundation and encourage others to support the DUEF during our Founders Day of Giving. Obviously, joining the alumni board of your chapter or some other housing board is another great way to give back. And as time goes on, maybe someday you may join the Heritage Circle and leave the foundation in your will or estate plans, or establish a name fund in your name to forever provide a scholarship to an educational program. So the reality is we all come from different means, and we're all various ages. And our encouragement to you is find your spot on the path and keep moving up, regardless of the means that we have, whether it's how much time we have or how much treasure. Both are so critical to the organization, and there is and should be a way in which everybody can make a difference through both time and treasure. So the last thing I'll share is just kind of the charge that I think the foundation should have and does have to any alums. It's really two things: stay connected to DU and give back with your time and treasure. And that stay connected one sounds probably easier than it really is, especially as people graduate. You have no idea how hard it is for us to keep track of where are people with new cell phone numbers, new email addresses. They've moved at different times, especially your first few years out of college. And the organization can do its best to try to keep track of that information, but we can't communicate with you, whether that's the quarterly, invite you to an event, if you don't also make sure you make sure the headquarters knows, where are you, what's your phone number, what's your email, so that we can keep you up to date, not just about things that relate to the larger international fraternity and foundation. Sometimes we do different communications specific to your chapter if there's something your chapter's done. And so staying connected is a relationship and a responsibility that the headquarters has, but that you also have as an individual, so that we know where you are and we know how to best communicate you in the ways in which we can to keep you connected to DU. And obviously give back with the time and treasure that we've all been afforded. So that quote there is one that's always inspired me about DU's ritual, and it talks about the giving back to those that are yet to come. And for some of our recent graduates out there, you all know you've had so many before you invest in you with time and treasure, and now that the torch has been passed and it's your turn to do the same. So that's just all for me, and hopefully I'm willing to answer any questions, but again, the foundation loves your support in any way we can take it.
Hey Ryan, we have a question from Jerry. Jerry asks, what are the steps to donate to a local chapter, and who do you contact? For to do so? So like if you wanted to, I know some chapters have, and this is something obviously that the DUF doesn't manage, but some chapters have local scholarship funds or local building funds, what that looks like, but also they also could give to the local fund. So any ways to get started there?
Sure. If there's a couple things with that question, is the simplest way is just to contact, if you don't know who the main person is that kind of runs whether it's the scholarship program or if it's a local chapter campaign that may be happening, and that happens pretty regularly, you could call our office and we can give you the contact information of who those head volunteers are. That would likely be the best place to start. Or sometimes I think we have to be careful is there are two separate organizations involved with DU. You have the fraternity side and the foundation side. And for people that want their charitable gift to be charitable and to be considered tax deductible, giving to the local chapter does not come with that tax deductible element. It doesn't mean that that isn't still something that you should do. And, you know, I give to my chapter, which quote unquote isn't tax deductible, but if the donor is wanting the tax deductibility, that's why we have some of those restricted chapter funds set up that allow you to give to the foundation, because we're the only element of DU that has that. Some chapters do have their own local foundation, but there's a lot of hoops that you have to jump through to kind of set that up. But I'm happy to talk with anyone, you know, offline on how to best, you know, make sure that you know the path and the channel to support your local chapter. If it is, hey, I just want to give to them and let them use the money how they want, recognizing that a tax deduction won't come with that. But if there are ways in which we can connect you with those folks, we're more than happy to do that, because a strong, local, thriving chapter, both with volunteers and with resources, is great for DU.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, those on the call, if you have any other questions, obviously Ryan and Jeff are still on the call. So we're going to move on, though, to our next presenter, Hayden. Floor is yours.
Awesome. Thanks, Dominic. And once again, appreciate everyone for taking the time tonight to be on the call. And if you're watching the recording, appreciate you taking the time to watch the recording. So like I said in my intro, I currently serve the fraternity as the Expansion Development Director. I've been on staff for just under 4 years and really wanted to take the time tonight to talk through staying involved with the fraternity through working for the fraternity, and even a little bit about what are ways that you can even further volunteer through the headquarters, through some of our educational programs or attending our educational programs. So to kind of talk about my experience, I was an undergraduate 4 years ago. I was part of the Oregon chapter, helped restart the Oregon chapter, and I was a senior and really didn't know what I wanted to do. I had an idea that I really enjoyed higher education, but really also enjoyed some other things that I had experienced within college. And so it actually was Dominic who sat down with me and talked with me. I can still clearly remember, as the night before chartering, and Dominic, we were at Glenwood Restaurant, Eugene, Oregon, and we were having dinner, and he was asking me about my next steps. And Dominic was and continues to be a great advisor for the chapter, and talked to me about this opportunity to work for the fraternity and be a leadership consultant. And I didn't really know what it meant to be a leadership consultant. I know I'd interacted with consultants when I was an undergrad, as I'm sure a lot of you recent graduates have met a leadership consultant or a staff member. And he just really shared his experience, shared what it meant to be a leadership consultant, the ability to travel to meet different undergraduate brothers, to help executive boards grow and goal set and challenge them and support them and encourage them. It also allowed for me to help build or restart new chapters or chapters that we had but had closed. And that was really appealing to me. But I think the biggest thing for me of why I chose to join staff was the ability to give back, but also the ability to grow in a very unique way. Not many jobs right out of college give you the opportunity to work independently, to travel the United States, to meet so many different individuals and brothers from across North America, from, you know, freshmen or potential new members who join the organization, all the way to members who were in the chapter back in the 1950s and have had that opportunity to interact with so many different individuals and grow in a very creative and unique way, professionally, personally. Those things really appealed to me. And so taking the job as a leadership consultant was such a great way that I knew was going to help me, but I also knew it was going to give back to my fraternity. And I felt that need to give back. And it really wasn't until somebody talked to me about that experience that really got me interested. And so that's really my story. And I think encourage, and as I try to share what that means to be a leadership consultant, if you are a recent graduate, I encourage you to think about applying. We still are taking applications to be a leadership consultant. So if you are interested, you can go to the deltau.org website, and under join, under the career section, you can find the application there. So if you are interested or you want to talk more about it, we're more than happy to have that conversation. We're looking for just individuals who you didn't have to be on the executive board. You didn't have to be the most involved member. We want individuals who clearly were involved in the chapter, maybe held a couple positions, but just really care about giving back, that really exemplify the 4 founding principles and really live by our mission of building better men and our values of friendship, character, culture, and justice. And we also want individuals who are willing to be challenged and want the experience to be on the road and be in just a unique and creative and innovative space on a very creative and innovative team, which is something that has allowed for me to just continue to grow and is why I continue to work on staff, because I'm able to give back and able to continue to be challenged in new ways. I'm able to bring back chapters like Jeff's chapter at Missouri and just have a great experience in that and meet so many amazing alumni, but also meet so many amazing undergraduates and learn a lot from everyone involved in that process that I really felt like I wasn't going to get anywhere else. And so that is why I continue to work for the fraternity. And it's a great way for recent graduates, even just alumni, as jobs may start opening up at headquarters, to say, is that something I want to be a part of and give back in that way there. So again, we are still accepting applications for the leadership consultant position. So if you are interested, I encourage you to apply, and we can talk more about what that looks like there. I think on the flip side, there's ways to also, from a headquarters side, give back and be involved. So I know that there's facilitation opportunities. And so if you're interested in facilitating at one of our educational programs, reach out to our educational programs department or just IHQ in general, and we can have that conversation of what that looks like from a facilitation standpoint. If you want to attend LI and the Leadership Institute, that's a great way to still be involved. We have specific tracks just for our alumni and our volunteers that allow for you to be in the room with other alumni and volunteers and understand how to further give back, but also just be in a setting where there's 300-400 DU men and brothers all there to kind of see DU on a larger scale and network and connect. And that's a great opportunity to just continue to be involved and give back and build those relationships and those connections, all ways through the international and fraternity headquarters that allows for that to happen. So as a recent graduate, even as an advisor and as an alumnus, encouraging recent graduates to stay involved in that way. If recent graduates are curious about, or any undergraduate is curious about what it means to work on staff or be a leadership consultant, if you're an alumni or advisor, encourage them, talk to them about it. If you're a former staff member or have a lot of interactions with headquarters, or encourage them to reach out to us, because we love to just get on the phone and talk more about what that experience looks like. But also encourage them to get involved with the Housing Corps, the advisory board, or to give back to the Educational Foundation. All great ways to stay involved. And again, if you want to maybe not work for the fraternity because you had a different path, but you still want to attend our educational programs or facilitate in some way, those are all definitely opportunities that you're able to have. Just reach out, send us an email, give us a phone call. We definitely want to keep you all engaged in that way. But that's really all I had, Dominic. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer those. But again, appreciate everyone's time tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you, Hayden. By far the best job I ever had was being a consultant for the fraternity. It was definitely very rewarding, and we're going to some pretty cool places this fall. So some cool opportunities coast to coast, bringing some chapters back and starting up some brand new chapters. So it's pretty exciting for the fraternity. So feel free, once again, if you have any questions, drop them in the chat box and we can get them answered. I'm gonna go through some of our remaining slides as we talked about this. So, the concept of paying it forward, as someone who had an amazing undergraduate experience, realized that I really wanted to view it as a lifetime experience. It makes me sad when you meet people and they say that, they were a DU. I always ask, like, did you get kicked out? But no, but a lot of it, bad joke, but a lot of it is that we want people to think about their experience as a lifetime, that their 4 or 5 years in the chapter as an undergrad were just a chapter in their overall experience as a member of the organization. So a couple opportunities. This is where if y'all have any other ideas, feel free to chime in. So there's opportunities for social opportunities. I'll start with the fun stuff. Not that any of the stuff isn't fun, but it's all fun. Is local and regional alumni clubs. So in the past, we have had, they're not, a lot of these groups are probably more active at the smaller scale right now, but we've had some regional alumni clubs. So I'll just use, I live in Washington, D.C. We have a semi-active DC alumni, DU alumni club. So we have a Facebook group, but when it was first started off, we had a few people in the DC area contact us, and we talked about before kind of the fundraising component. It was people who said, hey, there's a large contingent of DUs in the DC area. I want to get together and socialize with them. So it's an opportunity. So this is from not only, this is people from across the country. So if you have any interest in any opportunity like that to take a lead or a leadership role in that, or if you'd like to get in contact with people who might have been, who might still have contacts with the local regional club, or if you want to start a new organization, please let us know. Contact myself, and then we can get you connected with local people. We have an opportunity to pull regional lists of people from our headquarters. So, all living alumni in Atlanta or all living alumni in Minneapolis, whatever that might look like for you. And this, like I said, this could be both at the local level. So highly encourage you all to get together with people from your own chapter, but also an opportunity to meet DUs from other chapters. As we all know that we end up moving across the country. Some people stay in the same area, but like myself, I've lived in 9 states in my life. So there's an opportunity to meet people. And the DC club in the last couple of years has been active more years than others, but it's been a good opportunity to actually randomly reconnect people from my own chapter that I hadn't seen in 10 plus years. So it was a good opportunity that I didn't even know that they were in the DC area. So great opportunity there. A lot of that might be happy hours. It might be get-togethers for meals. I know some local groups will do a monthly dinner, a monthly lunch. It might be downtown Kansas City. Let's all get together and have lunch once a month, whatever that might look like. We definitely want to empower you to get those opportunities together. So you definitely don't have to wait for any green light or permission from anyone from the fraternity or from a local house corporation, alumni board. Go out there, coordinate things, get people together. When we have sports again, being able to tailgate, and whether it be playing athletic events, so golfing. I know Jeff had mentioned putting together a golf tournament. A lot of, when we talk about kind of the advisory component, the house core component, there's also that alumni relations component, which a lot of chapters need that. So how do we make sure that you're hanging out with each other, right? So a lot of it, you're going to want to potentially see people from your own, the era around you. So the guys 2 or 3 years older than you, 2 or 3 years younger than you, what does that look like? But also, how do you connect with other men from your chapter or other DUs? But what does that look like to getting involved and engaged? So whether it be Founders Day, opportunities to get together. I know a lot of it could be the DU Founders Day, or it could be the local Founders Day, whatever those chapter traditions might be, to continue to go back and making sure that you're staying involved. It's also super important that you keep not only DU headquarters and the foundation, but also your local alumni. And when you change addresses, change contact information, how can we still keep in touch with you, right? So we want to make sure that you continue to update your address and your contact information with us, so we can continue to keep you engaged. So if you move to San Diego and want to stay and get involved, we can pass your name on to someone who's organizing something in San Diego or Seattle, whatever that might look like. So make sure you keep your contact information updated. There's also opportunities too, philanthropic and service opportunities. I know a lot of our alumni groups will come together and raise money together. Their golf tournament might be a charity golf tournament, right? So whatever that might look like, or they might go to food kitchen together. So different opportunities, different ways, whatever your passions might be, is how can you connect your local alumni group, so people in your peer group or other DU alumni, to giving back to the fraternity. So it's a great opportunity to stay involved and engaged. Other things, this is something that we've seen, we've heard chapters ask for this, is connections with alumni, looking for mentorships, looking for, some chapters have moved to where every undergraduate in the chapter has a mentor. So they are assigned to an alum that's either in their connected career field, or it's someone who's just willing to give back and say, hey, I'm your alumni mentor, what do you want to talk about? So that could be, a lot of times that is done through networking or career opportunities, right? So that could be resume reviews, how can alums talk to people about how they got started in their career, right? We might have started off doing, with this degree, but now you're in a completely different, career field. But what was that pathway you got there? You might have taken a traditional pathway, or you might have taken an untraditional pathway, but how can you continue to give back? And I think that is a component of alumni relations that a lot of our alumni groups can continue to work on. It's been a lot of feedback we've gotten the last couple of years I've been back on staff is how can we, that component of I joined the fraternity for networking opportunities, but what does that look like at the local level? And how can we connect? I was at a chapter earlier this fall, and they wanted a database of every career that every DU alum is involved with, right? To be like almost a searchable database. That's something we don't have right now. It'd be great if we could, but I think a lot of that is done at the local level. So what would that look like if we could, at least if you're tracking local opportunities, this is something you can ask for, something you can coordinate, or something, what does that look like? We can put all of the lawyers, the doctors, the bankers, whatever that looks like, so we can at least start organizing the alumni to at least be contacts. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be offering people jobs left and right, but what does that look like to support your local chapter or give back to another chapter? As we all know, sometimes our undergraduate chapters might close or be gone for a couple years. I know that when my chapter closed for a few years, I ended up staying super connected with Kansas State and doing a lot of things with their alumni house corporation board and alumni associations. So it's a good opportunity to stay connected with another chapter. So what does that look like to continue to give back? But you're, as Ryan talked about, all of your talents and gifts to be able to give that back to undergraduate DU. And lastly, Hayden talked about this a little bit already, staying involved and engaged. Leadership Institute, that is our program where the most alumni definitely come back to. There's also, if you're not aware, on the undergrad side, there's something, we have the undergraduate convention every year that votes on specific legislation. At the same time, because we're a bicameral legislative fraternity, we also have an assembly of trustees. So every alumnus in attendance will vote on behalf of their chapter or can be a proxy for another chapter to actually vote on legislation. So there's actually is fraternity business that takes place. So there's actually a good use of your time when you're there, but it's also a great opportunity to connect with other people. Hayden mentioned we do use a lot of people for President's Academy and our Regional Leadership Institute. So if you have any opportunity you want to give back, there are specifically, we have opportunities in our regionals. So we have one in Atlanta, Philadelphia, Kansas City, and Portland, and Chicago. So there's opportunities to connect if you're anywhere drivable distance of any of those places. We definitely always need people to facilitate RLA. So definitely let us know. We can connect you with Noah Borton or Veronica at our headquarters. Lastly, for just fraternity opportunities, we actually currently have a vacancy. So we have 5 province governors. So our fraternity is broken up into 5 different provinces. Currently, if you are a recent graduate in the Northeast, we are looking for someone to fill that vacancy. Province governor, you are the key liaison between all of the undergraduate chapters, kind of serve as that link and liaison between alumni and undergrads and the international fraternity. So opportunity to add mentorship and guidance, but also to send out communication, to serve as just a mentor for the chapters in that area. So we definitely, if you know of anyone who might be good in the Northeast, we're definitely looking for someone for that. As well as internet committees. So 4 of these committees are used specifically during LI. So if you come to Leadership Institute and if you're an alum, you can actually sign up and be part of one of these committees. So a lot of people don't realize that. So, because a lot of times we have to kind of pull teeth to be on these committees. So if that's something that if you sign up for Leadership Institute, I'll put a shout out to our Bradley chapter. They always have a significant number of alumni that come back and go to LI, but a great opportunity to get involved and engage. This is usually a couple-hour commitment at the beginning of LI, but it's not something that's going to be every day, hours a day commitment. We also have an opportunity to be part of the Meta Merit Committee. Meta Merit is our 11 standards of operation for the fraternity, and that is an ongoing committee that you can serve as a Meta Merit mentor and actually coach chapters or serve as an advisor to that process. So good opportunity there, and I can definitely connect any of you to that process. So let me back up. Any questions about this? I want to give everyone an opportunity. I know we're running. I want to be conscious of everyone's time. If you have any questions, I also wanted to, I did put people's contact information up there. My email, forgot to put my own, is greene@deltau.org. So it's just our last names for anyone on staff. So if you want to connect with Ryan about fundraising, foundation opportunities, Hayden about employment opportunities, or Jeff just to get ideas on how to get connected on House Court and Advisor, or any of the things I talked about specifically, social connections, go back to social connections. I do think that also, I do know this for a fact that younger alumni are going to be much better at social media than any of us old farts. So I think it'd be a great opportunity to get younger alumni involved and engaged. And how do we engage alumni via social media? So it could be, you know, Instagram, Facebook. What does that look like to continue to stay engaged, not only through newsletters and emails, but what does it look like to just continue that engagement, to show that lifelong engagement and show how you can be connected. So a great way to give your talents back, especially if you have some talents in the social media arena. Any questions, comments, anything else that we might have missed? This is a high-level overview, but we at least wanted to give people an opportunity to show how you can get involved and engaged and what are cool opportunities to get started, especially as a brand new alum, because there's plenty of ways to do it. You can do all of the above or kind of get your feet wet in a couple of the areas. But yeah. No, Mateo, yeah, if you want to, Mateo, a few questions.
Yeah, just a quick question. Are any advisors doing anything over the, like, due to everything being online this past semester, has anyone done any Zoom calls or anything like that with the e-board? I just texted the president to set one up, but I wasn't sure if anyone has done anything similar.
Jeff or Hayden, I don't let you guys chime in. Oh, Jeff, you're on mute.
Sorry. I have been doing both Zoom meetings or conference call meetings with my exec board, and we're just as needed, or, you know, it's been a little bit less. So I think everybody kind of got thrown into so much turmoil right after COVID hit that there was a little bit of a, let's let everybody get home. Let's let everybody figure out, do they need to move their personal belongings out of the chapter house? Let's let some of those things settle. And then after that, we've picked up. And so we're still meeting and still touching base with those guys to say, yeah, how can we support you? Can we use this time to get a few other things done this semester, and maybe be creative about the types of chapter meetings that you're still having? Can you focus maybe on the seniors that are graduating and do some senior send-off chapters or things like that? Or can you use this time to plan for next fall or for your philanthropy next year? And you know, are you still keeping in contact with fraternity and sorority life office on campus to start to paint a picture of what is summer recruitment going to look like? What is next fall going to, you know, are you still going to have formal or informal rush? Are you still going to do normal things next fall with homecoming or Greek week or whatever it might be? So we're still having those discussions.
That's a great question, Mateo. I'll just chime in as well and just say, you know, questions like that, as this COVID stuff is kind of always evolving, the fraternity headquarters and both boards are kind of trying to monitor as best we can to see what's going to be happening out there, and how can the organization, both from a staff and volunteer side, continue to quickly pivot to support either students or volunteers, depending on, hey, one campus, it may mean in-person things, and another campus, they may not even be back to school yet. And so we're constantly tracking, you know, where is each campus in terms of what their restart's looking like, so that we can be as nimble as possible in terms of how we support both each individual, if you're an officer and an undergrad, or even if you are a volunteer.
Yeah, no, definitely a good question, Mateo. Yeah, it's looking different everywhere, but I think whether, even if they're asking for it or not, I think sometimes the local exec board, I think specifically with some continuing last minute or last couple of weeks of the chapter excellence plan, meta merit requirements, sometimes advisors can definitely be helpful in helping the exec board get some of that stuff done, or some gentle prodding to reminders to help them with that. But I do think everything that Ryan and Jeff mentioned before is, I would say, continuous engagement now, but I think because we're kind of in this online era right now, is how can they just stay connected throughout the summer as well? I think sometimes for a lot of chapters, if they're not in person, they just don't have meetings. They don't really connect much over the summer. There might be some group meetings, but what does continuous engagement look like throughout the summer? I think for guys who are looking for those connections and some intentional opportunities, whether they want to or not, I think there's some great opportunities just to stay engaged. So sometimes advisors might need to just facilitate that a little and remind them that just because maybe the chapter president doesn't want to do that, that other people in the chapter might actually want those opportunities to connect. So I think that's been helpful that we're hearing that chapters.
Yeah, if I can piggyback on that, Mateo, I think, one thing that I've kind of started to hear is that there's a lot of undergraduates who don't know, they don't know what they don't know. And a lot of times exec will have their meetings and they'll talk about things, but if they're not taking that communication, they feel comfortable because they know, well, we're meeting about this. We've been discussing this. But if you're not getting that out to the general membership, they're sitting at home wondering what the heck is going on. And so I think it's very important to make sure that you're over communicating during this is probably more important than under communicating, and simply asking your advisor, can we get on a call with you or the entire advisory board at the time, or whatever that might look like. Yeah, I would absolutely encourage that.
Cool. Awesome. Any other questions? Feel free to reach out as well if you have anything pops up or ways to get started with anything we talked about tonight. There's definitely different people on staff or the foundation, the fraternity staff or the foundation staff, and can definitely connect you and help you get the ball rolling. I think sometimes it's important that sometimes as a new alum, you just you're kind of overwhelmed and you want to do something, especially if you're still in your job search process. But there are definitely ways to start connecting with people now and start doing things, especially as we're continuing to look for people to assist and help, but also as well as it's just getting good opportunity to get your foot in the door. So, all right, I'll pause and let's see if there are any other questions. If not, all right. Well, appreciate all your time and thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. Definitely continue to stay on look for future virtual programming from the fraternity. We have a few more things that are going to be rolling out in the next couple of weeks. So to continue to keep people engaged throughout the summer. So we appreciate you joining us tonight, and we look forward to connecting with you in the future. Thanks again, and we will talk to you soon.
Take care, everyone.
Have a good night, everyone. Thank you.